nti njiri nseza kaliyo kaliba kalijo muziba nakugamba ti okabonekizira okubi okawunganya mukakitawaza alireka
mu Uganda kiki
kitegeeza bw'olabanga ekintu ekiza okusanya obufamire eyo tojoganga musajja kumujooga nnyo okabonekizira okubi okawunganya mukakitawaza alireka tibw'olabanga ekize okumalawo famire eyo waayo nnyoko naye mukakitawo asigale wamaka gabone omuziba yagenda yalaba omuntu gwotasobola kuwaayo naye omuziba akugamba okabonekizira okubi okawonganya okumukakitawaza alireka ejjooga eryo lyomujooga abantu mwalirire se
waayo nnyoko
waakiri mukakitawo asigale ngaakola ki
azaalira
amaka is not a good decision but the muziba tells you if the family egenda kuggwawo kiriza nyoko yafe muweeyo okabonekizira okubi okawunganya okumukakitawaza alireka mayinza abaziba mpagala nyamuno ti muziba amwe muganda kakati omuziba najjako bw'aba yaganye ekintu nga nzi kiŋŋaana niŋŋaana
olimu empeke y'abaziba ndowooza
omuziba akugamba balinda ebira kaseeko ka musansala kasi omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebira kaseeko ka musansala aba agaanye
kitegeeza ki
ka musansala yali mwami w'ekiziba nagende wa mukwano gwe bamuwa omwenge mungi nnyo nayonoona mu buliri kati bwakeera kumakya naga obuliri mbwonoonyemu nayogera nti naatema nadduka nayingira ekibira bwayingira ekibira musansala naabula niwe munoonya naabula nabunduka enviiri bwati naabula ali mu kibira ly'amatungulu kati obwana obwava mu bwakabaka bwa musansala bwagendanga mu kibira okulya amatungulu okukolaki ne bumulaba omusajja wandi ne bumwetegereza baali bakola mu lubiri abasajja nabo musansala aliyo nabubuuza musansala yakolaki abuuza omwana bwakola mu lubiri yabutegeera yali awumanyi bakabaka boobera akajende wa munywanyiwe akanywa amalwa mangi akania mu nju ya munywanyiwe abaddu bakawulira abazaana bakawulira bonna bakawulira balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala musansala yaga siridda kaseegu siridda kasita omuziba akugamba ngaomujooze nnyo n'ojooga omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala
olabika olimu omusaayi omuziba
kasita omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala abatajja kikola balinda ebera kaseeko ka
musansala kooli owera akaayo eyo anti era akayo waliyo negombola bagiyita kiziba
musansala abaddu bakawulira nti bakawulira
abazaana bakawulira abaana bakawulira
akagende wa munywanyiwe akanywa amalwa mangi akania mu nju ya munywanyiwe abaana bakawulira abaddu bakawulira balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala kasita omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala olwagaanye naye kyebakola abaana bakomawo mu lubiri ne boogera tulina omusajja gwe tulaba atubuuza naye yabunduka dde enviiri yakolaki atubuuza ti abaddu bakawulira tibakawulira abazaana bakawulira tibakawulira balinda ebera kaseeko ka musansala kwe kugenda ne bakima musansala bamukimayo mu kibira ne bamuliza ku bwakabaka obwana bwayogera tulina omusajja gwetula nga musansala yabula kasita omuziba akugamba nti balinda ebera kaseeko ka abatajja kikola abatajja kikola tojooga muziba nze abantu bonna ninakalikeya kati abasoga mbayinamu omwana luwamputtu
naye gwe buli wamujola
wonna nabanyankole era ate waliwo omusajja omugagga tewali musajja muganda
wekoledde security
talina mukazi muyima abayima balina emikisa
abasoga obalina mumwana
n'abasaamya
nabo obalina
omweweebuzize musaamya
obikolo bigendere oba
omulugwala mutya mukambwe yetagaddibwa ayina gweyokya butto omulugwala taze oyo mutya
ojja ofunayo omulugwala
n'omulundi ayina ebiteega azaala kizaala anti ekiteega bw'oba oyagala okulwanyisa anti ekiteega bw'oba oyagala okulwanyisa ekiteega okiteega kalaayi ng'ogifundise tekirinnya lusozi kiremera mu nju gwaza
kati wuuyo okimanyi nokiteega kakati lwaki tofuna funa omulundi
ejjembe ng'onaalisobola gumba lya mbizzi oba bi amayembe ng'agakola omwana n'afuwa aba n'apama gatema ekikumi ate ekyokoola waliwo ekyokoola lemwe mubimanyi
mbadde manyi nti ebyo byonna byoyogedde biyitibwa byokoola
ekyokola kirala
nze nali manyi byebyo byonna bigasse wamu mayembe bidogo
kimubeera nakyo mu famire nekyetuma kati bwe mba nayambadde esaati yo ekyokola kijja nekinkonkona tesaati ya bandangi kimi nga tugitumye toleete baga nti ejjembe lya muno kyokoola ejjombe lyogera ng'abaana ekyokola kirala
kibanja kyokka
kyo kyetuma ewaka nga munyumya ekitambo kirala ekiteega kirala kyo kasita okiteega ekalaayi tekibuuka ekiteega tekirinnya lusozi
tekimanyi kusalinkirira
ejjembe ebbi ejjembe omwana n'afuuwa nga bali musavu oba n'apama nekumba ly'embizzi n'amajiini masiraamu ejjiini teriyingira wali mbizzi
kitegeeza bw'oba oyagala okugoba amajiini onyookeza eggumba lya mbizzi
olyambala mwanda we ategekulu
oba mu bulago lwaki olyambala mwanda we lwaki si mu bulago lwaki si mu bulago oyambala
samayinzi mi I help you I predict things nakugamba nti Uganda tubadde wano ebbanga ddene naye bwenjogera ebigambo 18 gulabika and I write kati soma akatabo ako some people say
mutebubeerayo akatabo kaakano nkalina kaliko eddiba liddugavu understanding mafia politics handbook kakati wano ennaku z'omwezi omwaka gukafuluma gwojagala tutandike 2012 mu Desemba ennaku z'omwezi zaali 25 yali Christmas wakayita emyaka 10 akatabo kano
naye nze njagala nnyo afende muhoozi muwandikidde akatabo mbadde njagala okuleeta muwandikidde akatabo akabafidde fende muhoozi mwagala nnyo nnyo emusabira omenye omuntu gwoyagala ne bwotajja ku mukolo ne bwotajja ku ki but the fact that he appointed me selected me among many Ugandans that will satisfy me abakatuli kibaga nti togwanidde oyingire mwana naye omwoyo gwange I'm not capable
newoba toyingidde mwange naye ekigambo
yes
okay kakati omutwe okugamba nti akatabo engeri kali kakadde oyinza okuba wakagula nako dda genda ku lupapula lwa 29 omutwe okugamba nti how mafia politics is applied in parliament. Although many would wish to describe the situation in parliament as a power struggle between the legislature and the executive, the presence of mafia politics is very prominent in the August House. Like in my earlier submissions, my considered view is that the political enemies of President Museveni are manipulating the House as they have tried to do with the religious organizations, Mengo, and the civil society. However, we need to critically look at Parliament as an institution. Uganda's Parliament is composed of 3 formidable groups, and they are: number 1, the opposition. These have come to realize that it is easier to hoodwink NRM MPs to support their interests if they are packaged as national interests. For example, NRM MPs were tricked to support essential motions against ministers believing that they are fighting corruption. What the opposition MPs did was to package these anti-government motions as intended to solve a problem in government. What the NRM MPs overlook is that such motions undermine the credibility of their government. It is not in the interest of the opposition to clean up their opponent. However, during such motions, we hear slogans and phrases such as, "This is not NRM, this is a national matter that should unite all of us because corruption affects all of us irrespective of political affiliation." Therefore, NRM MPs on many occasions end up helping the opposition. In fact, for a party like NRM capable of cleaning itself, the essential motions against ministers would originate from the movement caucus, not the opposition, as the current trend is today. This explains why the Public Accounts Committee, headed by the opposition, has taken center stage in the battle against corruption. Why the government has failed to highlight list at PAC is its own creation, although it is a Commonwealth principle that the opposition heads PAC. This does not mean that it grants us freedom. PAC is not CID that investigates cases. No, it depends on the Auditor General's report, whose independence depends on the leaders in a particular country. In case of Uganda, this is granted by President Museveni. No auditor is a foreign diplomat with diplomatic immunity. What this means is that the Auditor General's independence is granted by the government and the President, not the opposition. However, the public has been made to believe that the Auditor General is a byproduct of the opposition, which has grabbed the credit from the government. Another important factor is that not all countries have vibrant parliaments. Having an elected parliament does not ensure its freedom. For example, between 1980 to 1985, we had multi-party politics. Did we have PAC in parliament? Did the opposition play its role? In many cases, opposition MPs resorted to boycotts. They did not have the political clout like today, and it's because the executive then did not grant its freedom, because Obote was not a Democrat. Parliament's freedom has been granted by the NRM government. Number two, money-making group. This is a shrewd group that has taken advantage of the corruption in government. Although Parliament must be populist, but this does not mean abandoning its cardinal role. MPs have realized that once the corrupt are subjected to pressure, they play ball. Another score by Parliament against the executive, the nature of its operation. Although this is a legislative assembly whose cardinal duty would be to make laws, Parliament has surpassed the powers of other institutions. Has usurped the powers of other institutions, and the public does not see this danger of moving towards a parliamentary dictatorship. Parliament is seen by the gullible public as succeeding where the executive has failed. When ministers are put to task in Parliament, they are left to fight alone. This explains why ministers Saida Bumba and Dr. Kidu Makuya and the Choga ministers decided to implicate the president in their scandals to win favors from PAC members who are from the opposition. This creates double loyalty. But who can best help one in danger? Is it PAC or the president? I was amazed when State House officials handed over a list of RDCs to the Presidential Parliamentary Committee, whose bias against the president is obvious even to a baby. The committee recommended the sacking of RDCs because they knew that it would undermine the president. It was intended to prove to the affected RDCs that the president could not protect them. In my opinion, Parliament cannot verify one's academic qualifications. This is the role of courts because parliamentarians themselves have had this academic problem and have always been referred to the courts. In order to undermine the president, the committee ordered the scrapping of state house scholarships because they were giving the president political mileage, which had to be undermined. Interestingly, Parliament was not abolishing the scheme. It was rather being transferred from the president, the Minister of Education, where they can easily share the offers for themselves. Furthermore, unlike the executive who has strictly observed their role, Parliament orders the arrest of corrupt government officials. They have ordered sackings, they have handled public issues like markets, they have revived court cases, they have intimidated the judiciary, IGGs, and other government institutions. In a nutshell, they successfully insulated themselves from public scrutiny because they are perceived as an active parliament. In villages, the LC chairperson who follows the law becomes unpopular. People want action, not legal jargons. Fortunately for MPs, nobody comes to question their mode of operation. The media wrongly believe that the parliament is complementing the executive. They think that MPs are doing what the executive has failed to do. Parliament is also the largest source of information in Uganda. Its news in many cases follow into the sensational nature, which boosts newspaper sales. This has cemented the bond between MPs and the media. Secondly, newspaper sales depend on conflicts, non-development issues. The way our parliament operates always reminds me of mob justice. Many villages prefer mob justice because it is quicker at dispensing justice, precise, and does not require advocates or call for witnesses. Justice is done there and then. No corruption. This is why Operation Wembley was popular and faster at solving the problem that courts had failed to sort out, and at a low cost. Just bullets and fuel to transport the operatives. This is why when the executive tries to ask Parliament to restrict its role, it attracts public anger because people see this as an attempt to undermine a working Parliament. Number 3, ambitious young MPs. This is a group comprising young people in Parliament. This is the dominant voice of Parliament. Their bond is buoyed by the following factors. They are young and view themselves as future leaders. They have realized that it is easy to get quick money from the confusion both in government and the outside world. Number 2, they know that in order to retain their constituencies and earn public trust and cover their footmarks, they must take on the executive. Number 3, they have reaped the political benefits. They are always quoted by the government. Our government gives more attention to the trouble causers with its ranks than those who support it. In fact, what many of our political commentators overlook is the possibility of these MPs transforming themselves into a political party. Signs of this are clear. They are actually nominal party members to their respective parties. They are confronted with a choice between their group interests. They prefer the latter. Too many MPs, tags, symbols, or membership cards are becoming liabilities. This is best demonstrated by actions of some who disassociate publicly from government decisions, and it is becoming clear that many ministers see themselves independent candidates in the future. Those pursuing the anti-Museveni agenda in Parliament follow the same script like their counterparts elsewhere. They want to parade themselves as all institutions when actually they are a few individuals pursuing their own interests. The trick is to make the Uganda public and international community that a whole parliament, not a few individuals pursuing individual interests, are causing trouble in Parliament. When it comes to religion, the actions of Father Geristan and retired Bishop Niringiye are deliberately attributed to be the position of all Uganda's religious leaders. I landed on a document which some religious leaders had authored as a pastoral letter and were giving those appending signatures 5 million on last year's Easter. Some Easter sermons were paid for as adverts to create an impression that government was facing trouble from religious leaders, whereas it was the work of Ningiriye and company. The discredited non-government organizations like the Law Society were part of this scheme. Teachers' unions, women and human rights groups joined the bandwagon. Makerere University was setting up a fellowship under Ningiriye to teach religion and good governance. This was a strategy to use university students for walk-to-work crusades. This attempt also failed. The teachers' union faces a credibility problem. Its members were more interested in knowing how the union utilizes their money than the low salaries. In other words, union leaders have no credibility to take on the government when there were rotten skeletons in the Law Society's cupboard. In case of the Law Society, its record stinks like a decomposing corpse. How many Ugandans believe in the credibility of the Law Society depending on the conduct of the land friends and the land judges? The president, therefore, did not attack these groups. He isolated his critics from the group. Parliament is also using the same tactics. They are portraying themselves as parliament, not as an individual. This trick is bound to fall as elsewhere. Secondly, like elsewhere, they do not discuss the gist of the matter. This reasoning features everywhere in their attempts to discredit the president. They don't tell us that MPs are arrestable. It is as if it's a taboo or illegal. With their allies in the media, they do not discuss that the parliamentary privileges go hand in hand with the responsibility. They do not tell us that MPs do not enjoy diplomatic